Educational GMAT. Your partner in your GMAT journey.
Yes, guys. See, this was a trap that we discussed on the last slide also. Again, the argument gives us per capita, so population would not matter. Baker is just completely out of scope. Actual population would not matter because per capita already takes that into consideration. So can someone explain to me what the issue is that the argument is highlighting? What's the issue? Do you see a paradox here? What is a paradox? Yes. Very nice. There was a price freeze. That's the important thing, right? The Ministry of Health prohibited drug manufacturers from raising any of their products' prices. So the prices were frozen. But despite that, what happened? Very nice. Per capita expenditure for prescription drugs continued to increase. How could that happen? And that's what we are looking for. It's something that explains that despite the price freeze, how could the per capita expenditure for prescription drugs continue to increase? Yes, guys. Yes. All right. Okay. Now, let's look at this. Let us say earlier, there were these 3 prescription drugs that were selling at a very high price. What did the government do?
Don't
Froze
increase
the
that.
prices. Correct? They prohibited that the prices for these drugs cannot be increased. What did the manufacturers do? Absolutely. They replaced these drugs with new drugs at a higher price. At a higher price. Since these drugs were discontinued and new drugs were introduced at a higher price, this would explain that despite the price freeze, the per capita expenditure continued to increase. Mind you, and this is obviously some common sense, that price freeze was imposed for which drugs? Sorry? A, B, and C, right? The drugs that are there in the market. You can't impose a price freeze for a product that doesn't even exist. Are you guys with me? See, I can't impose, I mean, even if I'm the prime minister, right? I can't impose the price freeze for a Maruti model that will come 2 years from now. It doesn't make sense. And that's exactly what Alpha is doing. After price increases were prohibited, drug manufacturers concentrated on producing new medications, in our case, these new medications, to replace existing products. Clear? Okay. Population, as we discussed, would be out of scope because it is already taking that, factoring that by per capita. I am hoping you guys are very clear about this. See, if it had not been per capita, which means what are we talking about? Total expenditure. Then obviously population could have been a reason, right? Population is increasing, so obviously total expenditure would increase. But per capita has already taken that into account. Okay, how about Charlie? Can someone tell me why is Charlie not the right answer? Why? Decreased, in fact. See, if there is an improvement in manufacturing process, then the cost of production should decrease, right? Because the manufacturing process has become more efficient. But I would say on a larger level, profits and costs are out of scope. We are talking about essentially the expenditure, right? Which is the revenue part for the drug manufacturers. Product price or manufacturing. People don't buy from shop. More definitely profit because the profits, the cost is pre-spent and the profits, the chemists. Well, actually, you have a very valid point. But I I don't have a perfect explanation for that, except that when the Ministry of Health prohibited drug manufacturers from raising any of their products' prices. Now, what is the product price, by the way, according to you? Now, and that is where I would slightly like to disagree. In fact, this was a problem in India also a few years back when manufacturers had certain price, but that the retail shop uh, essentially sold it at a markup, right? But nowadays, to prevent that problem in India, for example, even from the manufacturer's end, almost every product has an MRP. So which means the retailer cannot charge in any case more than what is mentioned on the product. So which means the ultimate MRP is being decided by the manufacturer. And that MRP is where what the government is prohibiting. Yes, but I am saying the manufacturer, even in Indian context, the manufacturer decides the MRP. But I mean, again, as I said, that if only the cost part had been fixed, then anyway, the government cannot control the final price. Then what's the point of this entire exercise? Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, Bharat, tell me, please.
Oh, sir, like the sentence, like even though the use of prescription drug did not expand after the price freeze,
Yes.
what does it mean? Tells like per capita uh, quantity or the total quantity?
So actually, the thing is that let's actually look at this. Expenditure on prescription drugs continue to increase, correct? When will the expenditure, in fact, let's say per capita, actually, exactly speaking, per capita expenditure, per capita expenditure on prescription drugs continue to increase. When will the per capita increase? Per capita expenditure on prescription drugs. When will it increase?
Price will
Either when the price of prescription drugs increases, all right, or when people are consuming more prescription drugs. But do you agree?
per capita people.
Yeah. See, earlier I was consuming, let's say, I mean, I'm talking about volume, all right? Let's say I was consuming 10 tablets of prescription drugs per week. Now, if I'm consuming 15 tablets, then obviously the per capita will also increase. Bharat, are you with me? See, simple example, no, at times of COVID, obviously per capita consumption would have gone up, expenditure, right? Because people were consuming more drugs. The volume increased.
Okay, got it, sir.
Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
So the sentence that you are talking about says that this was not the case. Notice, use of prescription drugs did not expand. So this is what it's saying, that the volume of consumption did not increase.